With the latest poll being factored in, Joe Biden's aggregate approval rating has hit a record low. According to Real Clear Politics average, it's around 38%. And that means at the same time in his presidency as Donald Trump, Joe Biden has a lower approval rating than one of the most disapproved of presidents we've ever had. Now, of course, you can say the reason people didn't like Donald Trump was the media, which suggests the reason Joe Biden's approval rating is so low is not just his failures, for which there are many. I mean, Afghanistan was bad. COVID restrictions have been deeply unpopular. The economy is in shambles. But you also have the realization that the media narrative is collapsing. Along with this decline in Joe Biden's approval rating comes the ratings of mainstream and corporate press rapidly dropping, CNN riddled with scandals. And you have just generally regular Americans waking up to this and siding with a more Republican narrative. Now, perhaps the issue is that it's not a Republican narrative. When you look at polling, you see that independent voters and Republicans tend to be more aligned on the issues and the problems facing this country, which suggests the cult narrative of the corporate press and their alignment with Democrats is over. And that's why they're so desperately going after Joe Rogan. Right now, we're seeing all of these stories pop up where it's time to end the mandates and time to end the lockdowns. Dr. Fauci comes out and says, maybe we will be getting back to normal, because they've realized they've lost. Now, what's fascinating here is it's not just in the United States, which says to me it's a media victory for us. In Canada, following the trucker protest, we're now hearing that COVID mandates are being lifted. In the UK, lifted. In the US, lifted. New York, Illinois, they are lifting the mandates early because they've seen the polling. And I will say this, I stand corrected. You know, early on in the year, a month, it's only February, but we're on Timcast IRL. I'm talking to Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change. And I said, I think we're going to get more lockdowns. I think the Democrats are desperate. I think they've realized they've lost, and the only thing they have is locking people down. Luke said to me, no, I think with Omicron, they're going to back down. They've lost, and this will be the end. Now, the reason I didn't agree with Luke is that his position on this was fairly pragmatic, as if the Democrat uniparty establishment and their media allies were playing anything based on logic. Sure, Omicron is more infectious, but substantially less deadly. That would show that we're likely going to have tons of people getting really, really sick, or I should say tons of people will get sick, like many people will get sick, not really sick. And that will result in more natural immunity, which will result in cases going down and hospitalizations going down. Now, that's a logical reason to believe that we're going to see an end of restrictions. I don't give the Democrats and the establishment the benefit of the doubt. I don't trust them. But of course, here we are. Now, I don't think the reason they're backing down is specifically because of Omicron. I think it's because Biden's approval rating falls below 40% in aggregate. Aggregate. That means all of the polls combined. We're not talking about one poll. And we take a look at the response over at Civics. Independent voters and Republicans tend to agree the economy is trash. The COVID response has been miserable. We are not satisfied. Yet for some reason, Democrat-aligned voters say that the economy is good and that the COVID response was good. Yeah, you have to believe fake news to live in that reality. So when the majority of people in this country don't, suffice to say, Democrats, y'all are on the wrong side of history on this one, as they like to say. But let's read the news. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member in order to support these videos and all of our work. Our journalists are writing every single day, producing news for you guys. And these jobs are created because people have subscribed and become members, and your memberships fund the work we do. We do have sponsors, but primarily we are funded through memberships. With your support, we'll keep going. And as a member, you'll get access to our exclusive members-only shows, notably the Timcast IRL podcast, as well as our Green Room show. We've also got exclusive Tales from the Inverted World shows. But the Timcast IRL podcast exclusive is Monday through Thursday around 11 or so p.m. So as a member, you'll get to watch those shows. And we are deeply grateful that you're allowing us to do this work. Of course, they want to silence us, shut us down, go after our advertisers. They want to get us suspended, all that stuff. And that's why we rely on you guys to provide that shield as members to keep all of this going. But don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share the video with your friends. Let's read the story from Timcast.com. President Biden's approval rating falls below 40%, according to new poll. Well, hold on there a minute. I believe that can be framed a little bit better, Timcast.com. It falls below 40% according to a new aggregate polling. Now, it does say the rate marks an all-time average low for Biden, but the new poll that came out actually has Joe Biden at 41% disapproval. When you add that in, it bumps out a higher poll, drops him straight down. According to data collected by Real Clear Politics, 39.8% of Americans approve of the job Joe Biden is doing as president. Okay, so correction, I thought it was 38. It was 39.8. That's where I got that confused. Biden has faced declining approval rates since the beginning of his presidency. He began his term with a 55.5% approval rating, a nearly 20-point advantage over his 36% disapproval rating. His popularity steadily declined with notable slumps throughout the summer of 2021. On August 23rd, Biden's approval rating of 47.5 sunk below disapproval of 47.8 and has subsequently never recovered. I think this has to do with Afghanistan. The change came the day after Biden announced to the nation his plan to evacuate thousands of Americans from Afghanistan would be hard and painful. Withdrawing from Afghanistan, in my opinion, was the right thing to do. Many people have said to me, Tim, look at South Korea. The U.S. remained there for decades, and look how awesome South Korea is. And I see that and I say, I get it. I do. But that was us resisting the Soviet expansion. What are we resisting with Afghanistan? I mean, when we went in there, what was it, China? Is that the new Cold War? I don't think so, because you had the Democratic administrations favoring China and opening up trade with them. No, it was just another pet project of these international warmongering defense contractors. What was supposed to be mark and reprisal, going after terror groups, became nation building. So I can say, part of me likes the idea that we did a lot of good in Afghanistan. We helped a lot of people. And leaving the way we did, well, we screwed everything up. I don't want to go on and harp about Afghanistan. Suffice it to say, Joe Biden had a real opportunity here thanks to Donald Trump, and he screwed it all up. We then had, U.S. troops dying, war heroes. It was really, really bad. That was the beginning of the end for Joe Biden. Check it out. From Real Clear Politics, President Biden's job approval, with the latest Economist YouGov poll showing an approval rating of 41%. So let me clarify. I think I said that wrong. Disapproval is 51 and approval rating is 41%. This knocks Joe Biden down to his lowest point ever at 39.8. We've seen it get low before, 40.5, 40.8, but now 39.8. When we jump over to Donald Trump's aggregate approval rating and head over to February 9th, 2018, following the first year in office for Donald Trump, 42.1% aggregate polling. Now, what's remarkable is Donald Trump was still way, way down there, his lowest point being 37.0. But that was a recovery. Donald Trump was recovering from this low throughout his presidency. And though he bounced around the low 40s, ultimately landing down around 41%, his lowest approval rating came at 39.3, January 16th, 2021, the end of his presidency. I want to make sure you really, really understand that. Donald Trump maintained a, fairly bad approval rating, but in the 40s. Joe Biden's approval rating now in decline and getting worse is around as bad as it was for Donald Trump at one of the worst points in his presidency after several years. And to be fair, Donald Trump was way lower before, but he had a media onslaught just slamming and berating him, and he recovered from this. Perhaps we will see Joe Biden recover from this. Perhaps that's a fair point. Now, if we go over to 538, we can see that Joe Biden's popularity, 41.3% approval. I like using aggregate polling, and I like showing more than one. I think it's fair to give you as wide a view as possible. And the question about this, why is this happening? I genuinely believe it is a response to coronavirus. I believe it's the economy. And I believe the media narrative has finally broken. I've said this before. I'm ahead of the market. That's what I was told by a journalism professor. Tim, you have the unfortunate privilege of being ahead of the market. So when I see all of this news, I assume if this news is breaking now, people surely must know the Democratic Party has failed them. What I failed to realize is that if I read 100 stories in one day, all explaining how the Democrats have screwed this one up, the average person will read one of those. And it will take several months for them to collect all the information that I've been reading. The average person isn't reading everything the way I am. In which case, there would be a lag effect. Let's take a look at this. From independent voters, civics, coronavirus government response. How satisfied are you with the U.S. government's current response to the coronavirus outbreak? We can see that 45% of independent voters are not satisfied, and that's going up. 24% mostly satisfied, 23% not very satisfied, and 4% of independents completely satisfied. That's going down, which means the plurality. We have 68% saying in some capacity not satisfied, and only 28% saying they are satisfied. That is about 2-to-1 favoring the Republican perspective. If we then jump to the Republican view on this, overwhelmingly not satisfied. 66% not satisfied, 24% not satisfied. Only 8% say they are in some way satisfied with this. Now that is remarkable. With 90% of Republicans, unsurprising. And you can see there was a big flip around Inauguration Day, which goes to show tribalism plays a major role. Now let's be real. After Joe Biden got inaugurated, and then there was a flip, and Republicans all of a sudden were like, I don't know how I feel about what's going on with COVID. I roll my eyes at that. Give Biden a chance. The reality is, I don't think most Republicans did, or I should say many did and many didn't. Their complete satisfaction just dropped on Inauguration Day, which makes no sense. Like, not enough time has elapsed for anything to change. But you can see there was a period where Republicans just went totally sour on Biden. I think the reality is there was around 30 to 40% of Republicans who are like, let's see what happens. And that is you can see right here, 27% mostly satisfied throughout Joe Biden's presidency until around July. I think people started to realize that Joe Biden was an ineffective leader and was causing great problems for us. But let's take a look at Democrats. Democrats were unsatisfied under Trump, and then all of a sudden Biden gets elected and they're like, hey, now I'm satisfied. I say it all the time. Don't come to me with that stuff about both sides are not the same in that capacity. You're wrong about this. That's what the Democrats say. Sorry. I can tell you the Republicans tend to be more reasonable. They're still tribal, but the Democrats are glaringly unreasonable. 82%, 83% unsatisfied. Inauguration Day happens. Now all of a sudden they're mostly satisfied. Was that it? The election of Joe Biden was it for most people, including Republicans? That's just completely absurd. We can see now that Democrats are mostly satisfied. Only 24% of Democrats say they are not satisfied to some degree. But again, when you go to the independent voters, you can see they're more likely to be in line with Republicans' view of things. What's fascinating here is after Inauguration Day, not satisfied at all dropped, and independent voters were fairly satisfied with Joe Biden. This is important. When we get into July, 39% were mostly satisfied. You had a plurality saying to a certain degree, we're satisfied with what Joe Biden is doing. And now it's this bad. So I look at the Republicans and I say, they're a bit more reasonable, but still tribalist. I look at Democrats and say, y'all are overwhelmingly tribalist. I look at independent voters and I say, seems reasonable. It really, really does. Now let's take a look at how concerned are you about the coronavirus outbreak in your area? All in all, most people seem to not be concerned. Democrats, however, obviously, they're very concerned. 68% extremely or moderately concerned. Among Republicans, surprise, surprise. You've got 85% not expressing no or little concern. And among independent voters, it's very similar once again to Republicans. Now, what is it that is making it so independent voters are more aligned with Republicans? The media narrative that is held by the establishment, corporate press, and the politicians, it's failed. It's done. It's not working anymore. And I'll show you why. I will show you why. Mask debate generating sparks on the campaign trail. 2 photos going viral. Stacey Abrams sitting in a classroom with no mask while all the kids do it. Parents see this. They see your duplicitousness. They see the deception, the manipulation, the arrogance, and the elitism. And they say, why are my kids forced to wear masks when these politicians don't do it? Because they are lying to you. Now, Republicans have one advantage. They'd probably do the same elitist trash. Just so happens not wearing a mask works out for them. You see, the average American probably is not okay with the lies. I'd imagine even among the Democrat voters, those who are wrapped up in the cult, many of them are just trying to do the right thing to get by. But they're being lied to and they don't realize it. Republicans and Democrats, the uniparty, the establishment, they don't want to wear masks. Well, Republicans don't, so it looks like Republican politicians are aligned with them. No, I don't trust the uniparty. I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. The Hill reports, Democratic leaders, notably Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams, have come under fire from Republicans in recent weeks over photos showing them unmasked amid a crowd of masked people. In Abrams' case, masked children. Then you also have Alyssa Slotkin, who was also criticized. She faced a backlash Monday from Republicans for posing maskless for a selfie in front of a crowd of masked supporters at a campaign event. You also had Barack Obama at a construction site not wearing a mask while the construction workers were. I don't care. The Obama thing is a really interesting turn in this all. You see Obama, he's at his house. He's not going to wear a mask at his own house, right? The construction workers are coming to someone else's house, so they're wearing a mask. But here's the funny thing about it. If the Democrats really believe masks are important, shouldn't Barack Obama have been wearing one? They are lying to you. Mitch McConnell's a waste, in my opinion, as well. He's trash. Primary these people. I saw an interesting post. It said, I will not vote for anybody unless they pledge to prosecute Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci. I agree with that. At the very least, I agree with the idea that there should be a criminal probe into Fauci lying to Congress. And there should be a criminal probe into him bypassing a ban on gain-of-function research. He should be held accountable for this. Well, here's where it all goes now. Fauci says U.S. heading out of full-blown pandemic phase, sees end to COVID restrictions in coming months. Oh, because the science has changed again. It keeps changing. The funny thing about the science changing? We get studies all day, every day. There have been many studies on therapeutics and alternative treatments and things like that. But those studies are never the science changing. Never. Those are, I don't trust that study and that study's wrong. But then you get one study that says a pharmaceutical company is doing well. And Fauci goes, we got a new study here. The science changed. So everyone buy this thing. And I'm just like, why is it that the science only changes when it favors massive multinational billion-dollar corporations? How come the science didn't change when a study comes out of India or something like that? Oh, because it's political. It is. Now, as with all medical issues, I'm not here to give you medical advice. All right. I think the mask debate is one of the stupidest things ever because I think it's fair and obvious that masks work. Okay. They're not 100% effective. I don't think anyone reasonable is making that argument. And I think tribalism plays a huge role in here that I'm not a fan of. Masks, you wear it when you're sick and you don't spit on people. I don't know what the efficacy of masks is, but certainly it will prevent the spread to a certain degree. Now, that being said, mandates are political matters of policy I completely disagree with. When it comes to any medical issues, you don't come to me for your medical advice because I ain't got none for you. But now all of a sudden they're coming out and saying that it's all over. Look at this one. The era of big COVID mandates is ending. First read is your briefing from Meet the Press. Oh, you know what? The Democrats saw the polls. They know they're going to lose in November, so they better turn around. And now what they're going to say is, we were right. We slowed the spread. And if we didn't do this, more people would have died. We were reasonable. And then when cases dropped, we opened things back up. Yeah, that's how they're going to play it. That's how they're going to frame it. But you know what? I don't buy it. You know why? Well, let me show you why I don't buy it. From the AP. Canadian provinces lift COVID restrictions, protests remain. Well, this is a different country with different policies. How could they all of a sudden just be like, Boris Johnson plans to end England's COVID rules a month early. Interesting. Alberta ditches proof of vaccine program. You know what I think it is? I think you end up with mass protests, trucker convoys. There's now reportedly a trucker convoy in New Zealand. There have been truckers in U.S. cities. There have been mass protests, and they know it. The one thing that we've seen internationally, protest. Now, I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. But when they come out and they're like, we are ending the restrictions because the science changed. I'm like, the science in all of these different countries in unison around the exact same time just changed. One great study came out. Well, truth be told, okay, maybe. Okay, maybe the John Hopkins study came out and all of a sudden they're like, all right, let's end these restrictions. But because it's happening across all of these different countries, I think the real issue is these protests send shivers down their spines. I think they see how deeply unpopular they are. And I think they've realized with an election coming up, they got to make moves. I do think it's fair to point out that the Johns Hopkins study did come out and now we're seeing all of this internationally. Fine. But I once again will state, how come this one study is changing science and all the other studies that came out before are not? Could this one study be wrong? Well, you said the other ones were wrong. Why are you choosing this one? That's why I think it's political. Take a look at this from The Atlantic. I love it. Open everything. The time to end the pandemic restrictions is now. Why? Why now? Oh, an associate professor at Johns Hopkins. In March 2020, I wrote that America should cancel everything in response to the acute threat posed by COVID-19. I remain convinced it was the right thing to do. Oh, here we go. That's it, isn't it? That's it. Yep. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying we did the right thing, we saved lives, and it's time to open back up. Yeah, I'm not buying it, man. Your one study is not a change in science. It's one study. You can't convince me that every other study that's come out were all bunk or wrong or bad policy and bad methodology, but this one is the right one. Oh, I read it. It says lockdowns barely did anything. Okay. But this is the science you choose to follow, not any other study. Political. It's what it is. That's the reality. Now, look, I'm glad they're opening things back up and they're caving. Fine. New York, they're dropping indoor mask mandates. They joining blue states in easing COVID rules. You've got Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker will lift indoor mask mandate by February 28th, but rules remain in place for schools. Here over at The Independent is where it gets good and political. Psaki blames Trump for COVID lockdowns after Johns Hopkins study suggests they had little positive impact. Conservatives are using lockdowns to describe social distancing measures implemented under the Trump administration while blaming Democrats for them. This is truly the most amazing thing ever. Donald Trump came out in 2020 and said, it's a state's issue. I don't have the authority to force the states to reopen. Democrats in the states and blue states enacted lockdowns and restrictions. Republicans didn't. And Jen Psaki blames Donald Trump. It is politics. They know they're losing. They're freaking out. And the only card they've ever had to play is Orange Man Bad. Remarkably, Donald Trump hasn't been president for the past year. So explain that, Jen Psaki. It's absolutely insane. But here we are. 538. What to make of polls that show Americans are trending toward the GOP? Well, I'll tell you what to make of them. Democrats are losing, freaking out, panicking, and they're desperate. 538, of course, has a different perspective. Well, we don't really know what's happening, so we shouldn't jump the gun. Look, I've always been a left-leaning individual. Never been a big fan of the Democratic Party, but never a fan of the Republicans. I used to always err on the side of, man, Democrats are pretty bad, but they're better than Republicans. And then the Democratic Party went absolutely insane. Entertaining crackpot broken ideas, open borders, corporatism, fascism. What are they doing? These lockdowns are absolutely insane. There's no cohesion. Sorry. As I've long said, I've stood in the same place I've always stood, as have many other people. The Democratic Party just fired off so far to the left, I can't even see them anymore. And I look to my right and I see a group of people who look kind of like I do, but we disagree on a bunch of things. And they're like, hey, dude, over here. And then I'm like, well, look, I'm going to stand where I stand, center left economically and socially, but I can still hear what those guys are saying and I can talk to them. They're not that far away. The far left, I don't know where they went. There's this really funny post from the Joe Rogan controversy where someone was like, I made a list of Joe Rogan's guests showing his bias. And they listed like 50 people. And they put people like Russell Brand on the right as right wing, and Sam Harris and Tulsi Gabbard and Barry Weiss and me, all as right wing. And it's just like, it's laughable. Look, I don't mind being called a centrist, but I'm not conservative, and conservatives know that. I think centrist is rather fair. I've always been kind of middle of the road. But Sam Harris, that dude's got Trump derangement syndrome. Russell Brand, he's a leftist. He's rad, by the way. His podcast is fantastic. I think Russell Brand should grow, expand, and I think y'all should check out the work he's doing because he's doing a really great job. But right wing? The funny thing about this was that Joe Rogan has had like 1,500 guests, or maybe like 1,000 different guests, and this list was just like 50 people. It puts Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp on the left with asterisks. Like, they're on the left, but they're grifters or something. Oh, please, dude. It is so absolutely pathetic. The reality is, regular people who used to be on the left, who used to be left-leaning, are no longer aligned with your insane political party. And y'all are going to lose because of it. I'm never voting Democrat again. Never. I supported several Democrats in 2018 and 2020. Not happening again. I donated to Andrew Yang's Forward Party not that long ago, but then he did that Joe Rogan thing. You know what, dude, Yang, he came out and defended Joe and then deleted it and apologized for defending him. That was pathetic. Defend the guy or don't, okay? You can criticize him for legitimate reasons, but defend him or don't and delete your tweet. So stupid. If I tweet something, I'll be like, yeah, I tweeted it. You know, it is what it is. Here's 538 freaking out. They say it's still too soon to know whether more Americans are actually identifying as Republicans. Gallup's finding could portend a lasting change, or it could also be a short-term reaction to an unpopular Democratic president. Or it could be an artifact of lower response rates by Democrats frustrated with bad news for their party. Or it could relate to all of the above. After all, political science research has found that an individual's party identification can fluctuate. That said, party ID also tends to be pretty stable in the long run, such that we'd expect changes across the population to be gradual. To that point, there are two ways of looking at Gallup's party ID data: quarterly and annually. In the quarterly data, you can see that party ID is volatile. It generally favors Democrats, but there are numerous spikes in the data as well, where Republicans have an advantage. All right. Let's take a look at your quarterly data. When you look at the data quarterly, you can see that Republicans do sometimes overtake Democrats, but typically Democrats are on top. When you look at it annually, you can see that Democrats are almost always on top. They're really trying hard to stave off this unpopular narrative for Democrats. You know why? There are a lot of people who just fall in line and do whatever they think is popular or mainstream. There are a lot of people who don't follow the news and are not ahead of the market. Russell Brand, I think, is a really good example. He's not always been, in this position where he's waking people up and speaking out very, very sternly against the corporate press. He's actually been, not that long ago, pushing many left opinions. But the dude's always, in my opinion, been honest with himself. When he sees something happening, his opinion changes. And he comes out and starts talking about it. That's the popular shift. That is people waking up, red pilling, whatever you want to call it. It's happening. It's real. Now, there are a lot of people who watch shows like his who then trust him and wake up to what's going on. Same is true with Joe Rogan. They don't like the narrative because these regular people who just want to fit in all of a sudden are hearing it's not cool to be a Democrat because the Democrats are crackpot lunatics. Joe Biden's not popular. Nobody likes the job he's doing. I mean, most people don't. They disapprove of him. And so, where do you want to be? Bill Maher, our fair weather friend, has changed tone, now criticizing Democrats because he realized he's growing an audience among people on the right and at Fox News. But it's not because these are Republicans. It's because we long left those shows, Bill. We long left that political party. I used to watch Real Time with Bill Maher all the time. But then one day I just didn't recognize him. I'm like, dude, where did you go? You got Covington kids wrong. You were screeching about Donald Trump. Look, I get it. We have grievances about Trump, but he was just not standing beside us. He was too concerned about being on the left instead of being true to his principles. So here we are. Now we can see that 538 is desperate to push this narrative that, no, don't worry. If you're a Democrat, people aren't Republican. It might not be true. You're on the right side of history. Here's a funny thing. The leftist activists scream at Republicans all day and night, you're on the wrong side of history, man. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever, maybe. I don't care about the side of history to be on. It's the stupidest motivation. Is that what motivates these people? Are you on the right side of history? I don't care. I stand by what I believe in. Heavens, imagine if the Nazis won. Ugh, the right side of history would be horrifying. No, I stand by my principles and what I believe in. Imagine if the Confederacy won. You look back at these times of great conflict and strife. and they say right side, wrong side of history. I don't care. I stand by what I believe to be morally right, what is true and what is correct. And for the most part, I believe truth is the absolute morality. I'm a little a little hyperbolic. What I mean is just be honest and be true and let the truth guide you. The truth will set you free. I don't care about healthcare policy. I don't care about economics. I don't care about taxes. I don't care about political parties. I care about the truth. Russell Brand can come out and advocate for universal healthcare and communism or whatever. I'm not saying he's a communist. I'm saying he could get that extreme, but I think he's a fairly reasonable guy. I'm a big fan, by the way. He can come out and literally be like, yo, I'm Russell Brand and I'm an outright communist. And here's what's actually happening. Here's the truth. And I'd be like, thank you for telling the truth. I think your policies are horrible. I'm not saying Russell Brand's a communist. He's not. He's just a lefty guy. And he's great. And Jimmy Dore is much the same way. Jimmy Dore is a leftist and he's honest. So we like the guy. We're big fans of the guy. It's amazing, isn't it, how that works? You can be like, I think we need strong social policy, social welfare, universal health care. And then you come out and you're honest. And you say, but here's what's happening with the establishment. And I'll be like, I disagree with your opinions on those things, but I appreciate you informing me accurately. You can come to me and say you want to ban all guns. Just be honest. You could, if someone came to me and said that they actually knew about guns, they understood semi-automatic and fully automatic and the NFA and all that stuff, and said they think it was a good idea and explained their opinion, I'd be like, I think you have a terrible opinion. I think it's authoritarian. But thank you for being honest about the facts. The issue is the truth sets you free. And that's why they have to maintain the facade, because they don't want you to be free. They want you to be controlled, and they're losing. Good news all around, I guess. Hopefully the country sticks together long enough to make it through this stormy weather. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.